It's ironic that you ask a group of people about the greatest love story, and in our culture today, I think we all just go right to romance, right? It's just kind of, romantic love has become kind of the pinnacle of love in our culture, and I think it's natural to think that way, but, that's actually not the case in the ancient Near East, and I think that's an important context for us as we start a new series. There's a great book by a man named Joseph Hellerman called When the Church Was Family, and he says this about kind of this ancient culture. The central value that characterized ancient family relations was the obligation to demonstrate undying loyalty towards one's blood brothers and sisters. The most treacherous act of human disloyalty was not disloyalty to one's spouse. It was the betrayal of one's brother. In Mediterranean antiquity, blood runs deeper than romantic love. I mean, just think about how many fewer movies are made about sibling love and commitment, or family love and commitment versus romantic love and commitment, right? When we have rom-coms just as a whole genre because people love kind of going and seeing romantic comedies. But in centuries past, the highest ideals of love were blood bonds and friendships. And so in that era, the words for love, the synonyms for love, were words like loyalty and sacrifice and covenant. They were words about commitment and faithfulness. That's the lens through which people saw love. Nowadays, if you just put on TV, read a book, so much of our language around love is much more experiential. It's much more emotional. It's sexual. We obsess over finding that mythical soulmate so we can fall madly, deeply in love. The ultimate expression of that love connection is that we would make love. Love is almost always given this framing of romance now, rather than this expression of loyalty and sacrifice. Tim Keller, who wrote one of the best books on marriage, kind of detailed this change as well. He says, during the Enlightenment, the meaning of life came to be seen as the fruit of the freedom of the individual to choose the life that most fulfills him or her personally. Instead of finding meaning through self-denial, through giving up one's freedoms and binding oneself to the duties of marriage and family, marriage was redefined as finding emotional and sexual fulfillment and self-actualization. The change is revolutionary. Marriage used to be a public institution for the common good, and now it's a private arrangement for the satisfaction of the individuals. Marriage used to be about us, but now it's about me. And even as we think about love and finding love and falling in love, so much of our language is still me-centered. Whereas in the ancient Near East, when you were talking about love, it was almost always others-centered. And so we're going to get a great picture today that might help us reframe some of the loveliness of love in God's eyes. And we're going to look at this hyper-familiar word and kind of see if we can reframe what God means when he talks about love. The next 4 weeks, we're going to be looking at the book of Ruth, the 4 chapters in Ruth. We'll take kind of one chapter a week. Ruth is a book about love. And eventually, it'll turn into a book about romantic love. But first, it's going to begin in chapter 1 with actually a deeper form of love than even romantic love. So let's dive in. We'll start in Ruth, and I'll kind of read this, and we'll kind of discuss it as we go along. We'll get through all of Ruth 1 today. So this is verses 1 through 7. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. So a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. The man's name was Elimelech, and his wife's name was Naomi, and the names of his sons were Machlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in Judah, and they went to Moab and lived there. Now Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. They married Moabite women, one named Orpah and the other Ruth. And after they had lived there about 10 years, both Machlon and Chilion also died. And Naomi was left without her 2 sons and her husband. When Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord had come to the aid of his people by providing food for them, she and her daughters-in-law prepared to return home from there. With her 2 daughters-in-law, she left the place where she had been living and set out on the road that would take them back to the land of Judah. So the setting here, that initial phrasing, these are the days when the judges ruled. This is the time period that you can find just by reading the book of Judges. If you remember, the book of Judges was this cycle of kind of obedience and then faithlessness and obedience and faithlessness. And it was primarily a time of warfare and violence and moral decay and spiritual drifting. And so in chapter 1, almost to kind of exacerbate the spiritual famine in the land, now a physical famine in the land comes as well. And so this man and his family go searching for food, and they end up in the desert in the land of Moab. Now again, if you know anything about Jewish culture in the Old Testament, you're not really supposed to be wandering off into pagan nations and becoming part of their culture just because they have food and you don't. But you can understand the desperation here. But even this idea of going into Moab, if you were an ancient Jewish reader, you'd be like, ooh, that's a bad idea. So eventually in Moab, the patriarch dies, and his wife becomes a widow, and then her young boys marry 2 local Moabite women, and then it says 10 years later, her boys die as well. And so now this widow has 2 daughters-in-law who are also widows. They've lost all their providers. In an ancient Near East culture, 3 widows living without husbands is a disaster. They are going to be forced to live on the charity of others. There's no way for them to make a living on their own in this culture. And Act 1 of this story kind of sets up the chaos of life for these 3 women. But then in the midst of this chaos, good news comes. A report comes that there's food back in Judah, that the famine is over. And so God has visited his people and is saving them and giving them food, and he's shown up. And so Naomi decides it's time to head back home to Israel and her people. But she recognizes pretty quickly it doesn't make any sense to bring these 2 Moabite women home with her. I mean, they probably won't be welcomed back home as foreigners. And according to the ancient laws, the only people that they could kind of marry would have to be in her family line. And so she basically just naturally goes, you know what, ladies, I'm going to release you back to your home. We'll part ways. I'll head back to my nation and my culture, my tribe, and you head back to your nation and your tribe. Let's part ways. Continues in verse 8. So Naomi says to her daughters-in-law, go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show you kindness as you have shown kindness to your dead husbands and to me. Such a rough way to say that. May the Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband. Then she kissed them goodbye, and they wept aloud and said to her, we will go back with you to your people. But Naomi said, return home, my daughters. Why would you come home with me? Am I going to have any more sons who could become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I am too old to have another husband. Even if I thought there was still hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and then gave birth to sons, would you wait until they grew up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters. It is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has turned against me. At this, they wept aloud. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. Naomi's doing the sensible thing. She's sending these 2 daughters-in-law home. Go find your own husbands from your tribe. And I love that kind of their natural response at first is they both kind of offer this polite resistance. You know, you do like when someone's like, do you want dessert? No. Well, what is it? What is it? Oh, I'll have that. You know, it's like, I don't want to be seen as needing dessert to be happy, but yeah, okay, bring it over here. I mean, they're kind of offering the polite resistance, but Naomi's right. I mean, there's no hope for them in Israel. No sons to marry. She makes this long point of like, even if I got pregnant today, are you going to wait 18 years for a man to grow up? No, this is not going to happen. No one is going to marry a Moabite woman if I bring you home. Just leave me. Think about your future. She's basically saying, what has happened is my problem. It's not yours. In fact, she's basically kind of thinking she's cursed. I mean, the Lord's hand has turned against me. I've been abandoned by God. I mean, I've lost my husband. I've lost my 2 boys. I have so much grief. God clearly isn't providing for me. I'm the last person you want to be around. I came here with a husband and 2 boys, and even when I lost my husband, then my boys got married, but now I've got no husband, no sons, no grandkids in the picture. My life is empty. My life has become bitter, she says. And then we'll find out later that she actually, when she returns home, she says, call me bitter. My new name is Mara. That's how bitter my life has been. It's become my identity, so use that to describe me. She's saying, this is my bitter pill to swallow, not yours. Girls, go home. You don't have to be burdened with me. Do the sensible thing. Take care of yourself. You can find another husband. And so Orpah does that. She does the reasonable, sensible thing. She kisses her goodbye and she heads back home. But it says that Ruth clings to her, embraces her like a little child, grabs onto the leg. I'm not letting you go. You're not going anywhere without me. Verse 15. Look, said Naomi, your sister-in-law is going back to her people and her gods. Go back with her. But Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. And where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me. When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. This is one of the most famous declarations of love in the Bible. This pattern of whatever happens to you will happen to me. Wherever you go, I will go. She's basically saying, I'm all in with you. I'm making a lifelong covenant to cling to you and to your God. Wherever that takes us, whatever that might be, I'm all in. I've got your back. In the Hebrew language, the strongest word for love is this Hebrew word Hesed. And it's often used to describe God's covenantal love for his people, his commitment to do good for his people. Naomi used it here when she said, may the Lord deal kindly with you. May the Lord show kindness, show Hesed to you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. One of the challenges in the word Hesed is that so many different translations come up with so many different ways to describe it. It's kind of a clumsy word in Hebrew to put into English. I remember reading when I was in seminary that in 1989, the New Standard Revised Version, the NSRV, they left this word as they were translating. They kept coming across it, and they'd be like, okay, we don't really know what to do with that. And so literally it was the last word that they translated in the entire Old Testament. They had the whole Old Testament done, and they're like, are we done? No, we got to go back and deal with Hesed, man. We haven't figured out what to do with it yet. And in the end, they came up with steadfast loyalty. You can see why they're like, even that's kind of clumsy, right? Other translations say loving kindness. But here's what those translators realized. And this is, I think, the power of the word Hesed. Is that the reason Hesed is so hard to define is because God's Hesed love is not something you talk about. It's something you do. It's easier to see it than to describe it or define it or name it. And the great irony of the book of Ruth is that Naomi prays for God's Hesed love to be shown to Ruth, but Ruth, the foreigner, is actually the one here demonstrating God's Hesed love to Naomi. God's Hesed love is a commitment to put you before me, to put others' interests above my own. And Orpah does a sensible thing. There's we don't cast aspersions on her. This is what her mother-in-law told her to do. Look out for yourself. It's okay. Go home. But Ruth does this radical thing and puts Naomi before herself. Now, why would she do this? I mean, there's kind of 4 reasons in life that people do good things. 4 motivations that lead us to serve others. And honestly, these kind of emerge as kids grow up. I mean, the first motivation to do the right thing is just fear. Right? As a little kid, you're like, if I do the wrong thing, I'm getting in trouble. And so I better do the right thing because fear of God starts with fear of dad, fear of mom, fear of timeout, fear of losing my screen time. So I'll do what they say. Fear drives me to do good things. Then the second thing kids begin to learn as they get older is that it's not just fear, there's a self-interest. If I do the right thing, it goes well for me. I get rewarded. Right? This is what Christmas is all about in the secular narrative, right? If you're a good boy, Santa comes and brings you gifts. All right, December, I better be good so I can get rewarded. So there's a self-interest motivation for doing good. And then as you get older, this is like the teenage reality is duty kicks in. It's my duty to do the right thing, to do good as part of this collective community. And so you're given chores, and even in our age now with our kids who have chores, there's really no reward. We're not giving them allowance. We don't really punish them if they don't do them. But it's just like, come on, guys. This is part of what it means to be in this family is you have to carry your own weight. And if you don't fulfill your duty, there's more of a sense of shame that I didn't do it than there is a punishment for not doing it as you get older. And then the fourth motivation, kind of the highest ultimate motivation is love. I don't have to do it. It's not even in my best self-interest to do it, but I'm going to do this out of love for others. I'm going to offer this as a gift. And here's the thing with Ruth. There's no fear in Ruth staying in her homeland. They'd probably love to have her back. Naomi releases her of the duty, so there's no duty binding her there to have to stay. And honestly, it doesn't seem like she's going to have a better future in Israel. They've made it pretty clear, I don't have anyone for you to marry. She just sees her mother-in-law in need and chooses to give her a gift, chooses to love her, chooses to stay with her. It's love that's motivating her to do the right thing here. Verse 15, so the two women went on until they came to Bethlehem. And when they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them. And the women exclaimed, "Can this be Naomi?" "Don't call me Naomi," she told them. "Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me." So Naomi returned to Moab, accompanied by Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, arriving in Bethlehem as the barley harvest was beginning. I mean, it'd be easy to maybe think I'm reading too much into Ruth's act of love, like maybe she wanted to start over, maybe she wanted to go on an adventure. You know, nowadays leaving home is not that radical in our modern eyes. But if you want to see how radical it is, all you have to do is look to the next chapter, which we'll get into next week, where she's going to meet a man, and the first thing the man's going to say to her is this: "I've been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your father and mother, you left your homeland and came to live with a people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." First time meeting this guy. She has no idea who he is, but he already knows who she is, because she has committed a remarkable act of love. The whole town's remarking on it. The whole city is kind of in a stir about what this young woman did. Who would do this? Why did she come back with this mother-in-law? They're talking about it. They're marveling over it. Leaving your land and your family and your culture to follow your mother-in-law? I mean, mother-in-laws can be hard to love sometimes, right? I mean, just maybe a little bit. There are two women having coffee talking about their families, and one said to the other, "My mother-in-law is an angel." And the other one said, "You're lucky, mine's still alive." All right, one more mother-in-law joke. This is my favorite. A patient said to his therapist, "Doc, last night I made a Freudian slip. I was having dinner with my mother-in-law, and I wanted to say, could you please pass the butter? But instead, what came out was, 'You crazy woman, you've completely ruined my life.'" The great irony of the book is that this foreign Moabite woman is demonstrating this Hesed love to a mother-in-law, someone that has no reason to be committed to except the choice that she makes. And she, the Moabite foreign woman, becomes the picture of God's Hesed love. What might be even more amazing is not just that she's demonstrating the character of God through this love, but she's actually going to become part of the lineage of Jesus. And later in this book, we'll see how Ruth is going to become the great-grandmother of King David. And eventually, all the way down the line, she is one of the matriarchs in the royal lineage that leads to Jesus. She's not just related to Jesus, she's a picture of Jesus in this story. She is embodying Jesus' unconditional Hesed love towards all humanity. Just like Ruth, Jesus is going to leave his Father's presence. He's going to leave the comfort of his own world, and he's going to come and care for the needs of humanity. Not out of fear, not out of duty, not out of self-interest, but out of pure self-sacrificing love. Even though it will lead to pain and loss, Jesus will come to love others so that we know that we are not alone. And Naomi knows, because of Ruth's love, that she will never be alone. And this is where I think we find the secret to showing Hesed love to others. The more that we can accept and comprehend the length and depth of God's love for us, the better we can express it to others. Even this picture of what Ruth is doing is meant to say that's what God does for us. Even when we're bitter and angry God draws near to us. He clings to us. He says, you can't shake me. I remember long before I actually made a decision to follow Jesus, I was on a high school retreat, and they told us to go spend an hour of silence out in the woods. And I was sitting out there, and you're supposed to be listening to God. And honestly, I'd never really done that before, didn't have much experience. So I kind of thought this is kind of weird. And I was sitting there, and I remember there was this brook, and this little fly came and landed on my knee. And I kind of brushed it away. I was wearing shorts, brushed it away, and came back and landed again, and came back, and it just kind of wouldn't leave me alone. And that's like at first really annoying, you know? You're like, come on, man. And it was the first time in my life, even before I'd really give my life to Jesus, that I had kind of an interpretive thought about an experience I was having. And I had this thought of God saying, I'm not leaving you. I may be bugging you, but I'm not leaving you. And it was like, could God kind of be like in this fly? I was so embarrassed to even say that, but I remember I went back and I told the story to this group, and at the end of the retreat, we were painting rocks on the final night, and someone painted a rock, and they colored it red, and they just put a little fly on it. And I kept that. And 3 years later in college, I gave my life to Jesus, and I thought, oh my gosh, man, I was in this frat house, I had left church, I was never going back, but God just kept coming around and saying, I'm not leaving you. You can swap me away, you can run as far as you want, but I'm going to cling to you. Where you go, I will go. That's the commitment of Hesed love. That's Jesus' commitment to us. And the best thing we can do is stop running, stop fighting, stop trying to swat him away, but to embrace his presence and his goodness. John 15 calls it abiding in Jesus, staying connected to the vine, clinging to the vine like a grape says, man, the minute I fall off this vine, my life is over. I better hold on to this. It has everything I need. And so the more we're able to experience the length and depth of God's love, the more we can show it to others. God's calling us to put the wants, the needs of others before ourselves in all of our relationships. I wonder who in your life today feels unlovable. I wonder who in your life it feels inconvenient to love. Who could you love that would be so radical, so unreasonable that the whole city would start talking about it? Because in the end, the only thing that really matters in eternity is how we love God and how we love others. That's our entire life significance wrapped up in those two things. And so I just wonder this week, who might God be asking you to serve with that sort of selflessness and faithful commitment? Who might you even be trying to bless, who's kind of trying to swat you away or saying, enough, and you're going, no, let me do this for you. Who is God inviting you to serve, not just out of fear or duty or self-interest, but from a place of divine love that puts them before you? I'll invite the band back up as we close, and I just want to share with you kind of, I don't know if this is even a poem, but this is from a great book, and it's one of my favorite descriptions of love. Frederick Buechner wrote this in his book, Magnificent Defeat. He says, the love for equals is a human thing. A friend for friend, brother for brother. It's to love what is loving and lovely, and the world smiles. The love for the less fortunate is a beautiful thing. The love for those who suffer, for those who are poor, the sick, the failures, the unlovely. This is compassion, and it touches the heart of the world. The love for the more fortunate is a rare thing. To love those who succeed where we fail. To rejoice without envy with those who rejoice. The love of the poor for the rich, of the black man for the white man. The world is always bewildered by its saints. And then there is the love for the enemy. Love for the one who does not love you but mocks, threatens, and inflicts pain. The tortured's love for the torturer. This is God's love, and it conquers the world. As is our liturgy, let's take these moments now to sit in silence and let the Lord speak to us what he might have for us today and how he might invite us to live out this word in the week ahead.